Welcome back, Bulldogs. My name is Santia Rogers, Senior Accounting Major and Vice President of NABA AAMU.
And my name is Maris Malel, Senior Finance Major and NABA AAM President.
And we are
Breaking Down Business.
We are currently in Atlanta, Georgia at the National Association of Black Accountants Regional Conference. We are surrounded by students, young professionals, recruiters, senior talent, and more who are here to network, get opportunities, as well as give them. Today we have Mr. Ray Price Jr., the Chief Financial Officer at CLA, Clifton Larson Allen, one of the top 10 accounting firms. Mr. Price currently serves as a chairman on the Corporate Advising Board for NABA.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My pleasure.
On behalf of our business school students, we would love to ask, what initially inspired you to pursue a career in finance, and how has that motivation evolved over time?
Yeah, great question. I don't know what really started me down this path at the very beginning. I'm a first generation, and so my mom and dad worked completely different, blue-collar workers, manufacturing and other things. So I didn't have that as in my home, but I had a couple different people that influenced me. I had the opportunity to interact with a couple different individuals that did go to college, my older cousin, and then someone else that was really big in our neighborhood that was a CPA actually.
Wow.
And so it was a very, very funny story. I never knew what he did, but or his wife, but they had a great life from what I could tell, right, in terms of, and I'm going to say great life from material things, right? I just all this big house and nice cars and all this. And I was probably my senior year in high school, had the opportunity to get in front of him, and we're just talking about something. And I said, well, what do you do? And he was like, oh, my wife and I are CPAs. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant. So I kept that kind of top of mind. And so when I was going to school, because I was going to school late 90s, and that was the big time around, oh, you need to become a programmer, right? You need to get into computer science. So I really thought I was going to go computer science. I took my first programming class, like, no, this is not for me. I still got an A, but I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do long term. So then I started thinking a little bit more, and knowing that I still wanted to be in the business field. So then I looked at finance, and then, well, let me be a dual major, finance and accounting. And so I decided to do both of those together, just based off of my older cousin who kind of was in the business. I had seen him wearing suits and all those. I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. Still didn't know all the things he did. And then from that conversation with the person in our neighborhood around being a CPA and him and his wife, and being very well off, if you will. Now, interesting thing about that is, it's funny how life comes full circle. So that same individual, I got my first internship at Nations Bank, which became Bank of America. And I'm in what we call private wealth management at the time. I'm an intern, like I said. He walks in, this individual that I've known all my life. He said, hey, Ray, how's it going? And so forth. I was like, oh. Wow. And the banker was like, oh, you know Mr. such and such. I said, oh, yeah, he's in my neighborhood, and I've known him for a long, long time. My aunt works for him and so forth. And I said, yeah, he's a CPA. And he's like, well, that's not how he got wealthy. Wow. I was like, what do you mean? He got wealthy from creating something that went into the X-ray machine and created a patent. What? So he kind of fooled me a little bit about the whole CPA thing, but it has been a great career. It worked out very well. And I guess what's really evolved over time and kept me excited is the ability to see the things that I do day to day, how it impacts or the market plays a part. So you're seeing the market move, and you can see it come through the work that you're doing. And so for me, it was just this big connection, particularly when I was in the banking space. I did a lot of roles that were very top of the house, where I was looking at the full balance sheet, the full P&L, and we were making decisions, and I could see the decisions we were making, how either it impacted our stock price, or it was a correlation with how the market was moving as well. So to me, that's exciting, because I'm constantly learning, and I'm seeing my work actually have an impact in the bigger scale.
Absolutely. And I think the most beautiful thing about that was he got to plant the seed and then see the flower. That was really good. So to go into another question, I would like to ask, as CFO at CLA, what responsibilities have you taken on, and what skills have been most valuable in preparing for this role?
Yeah, so this is a very different role for me, I would say, because I've been a CFO before, but I've been a CFO for a line of business. When I worked at Bank of America, I was there for 26 years. Absolutely. And so my last couple of roles, I was CFO within the private bank space or within private wealth management, but I wasn't the CFO for the whole business. Absolutely. And I wasn't the CFO for the whole enterprise. So now I'm the CFO for the enterprise. So jumping into that is one, I got to understand all the routines that we have in the finance organization, but then also I'm gonna call it a good stakeholder or business partner. I got to think about the strength of the organization. So I need to talk to every function. I need to think about all the costs that comes through, how we're generating revenue. So it's now I'm looking at the full balance sheet, the full P&L, and it's more of a strategy role as well.
Wow.
And there's a lot of business partnering. I have to partner with everyone from the CEO who I report to all of my peers from a leadership perspective. So that's a little bit, not I want to call it different, but it's more responsibility and a little bit of a challenge because now I got to learn this whole new industry and at the same time build relationships. And it's also them knowing who I am and making sure that I feel that connection and those relationships are genuine and they see the value that I'm bringing to the organization as well.
Absolutely. So could you give me maybe 2 or 3 soft skills that really helped you be able to perform well and do that?
Yeah, the first one is definitely building relationships. Okay. And I've always done that throughout my career. I've always gotten good feedback about that. And for me, it's just being me. I want to be able to get the work done. We spend too much time at work to do it in a way that you don't feel the sense of connection, or you're not having fun, or you're not getting to actually get to know people. So I usually always spent those times, and I at first didn't do it on purpose. I just was being me and just, hey, how's it going? And have that small talk before we actually got into work. I just wouldn't go directly into the work, where some people would go directly into the work. And so when I would call later when I had an immediate request or something had to be turned around very quickly, everyone responded to me very quickly. It's because it's like, oh, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for the better good. So if he calls, he needs it.
Yeah.
And so that's when I realized the importance of building those relationships. So that's one I would probably point to. Another soft skill that I would say is probably, I don't know if it's a soft skill, just work ethic. Showing up, being available, and putting in the time, putting in the energy. Sometimes that means working weekends. Sometimes that means working late at night. And that doesn't need to be your story all the time. I've definitely had cases and scenarios across my career where I was staying at work till 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And some people just live with that. It's like, all right, well, that's just how it works. And for those days, I'm just going to work late. For me, I still use that. So, well, no one should be here this late. Let's figure out what's the problem. Let's fix the problem. And let's get in front of it, make it more efficient, and then we can go home at a decent time. And you work on those things, and all it's about improving the process overall, and you're driving value for the organization.
Absolutely.
And then when you do that, leadership sees it. So then you get opportunities to get promoted, to get other roles. I think at Bank of America, I was on my 14th job with the firm before I left. So I moved around quite a bit, and none of those roles were me looking for a role. Someone came to me and was like, oh, Ray, you're doing such a great job here. You've been in your role for 2 years, 3 years. Do you want to do something different? Wow. That's not everyone's story, but that's definitely was my story.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said be yourself. A lot of students ask, how can I be successful? How can I be successful at NABA? I said, just be you. There's no one like you. I'm glad you said that. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah. And one thing that I really took for that is just how selfless you are. Even for your mind to think that, maybe let me give this person a little bit of small talk before I give them a deadline, or I know I have to work this weekend or this late night. That just shows how selfless you are and dedicated you are to your career.
Well, I guess to that point also, when you start managing people, because the examples I was giving was when I was really just business partnering. But when you start managing a team, it's even more important to build those relationships. Perfect. I've seen people come in and they just, almost like being a bully. Like, just get the work done, do it my way, do it that way. Well, you don't create a culture that way. No one wants to follow someone. They'll get it done, but it's only a matter of time before it's like, all right, let me go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So I'm always very aware of building those relationships, making sure that we have work-life balance, that we're talking about those things. We're talking about what's going on in the world as well, because all of those things have an impact on your day-to-day at work. You can't just separate the two.
Yep.
So let's have that genuine conversation, bring your full self to work, and then hopefully that drives the right type of output, and everyone feels good about coming to work as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow, this is really good stuff. So, as CFO, what what do you use to maintain a healthy network balance?
Oh, that's always
work-life balance.
Work-life balance, yeah. Work-life balance. I knew what you meant. That's always a tough question, and I have evolved in my thinking around this. I always used to say, yes, definitely you got to have work-life balance. You got to cut it off. You got to make sure you go home. And I've learned that from mentors over the years. Particularly one mentor told me, and I just asked him the question, he was a treasurer of Bank of America, what would you have done different in your career? And he was just honest. He was like, he didn't spend enough time at home. He worked very late. He was providing for his family. He provided a great life for his family, but he missed some games. He missed some recitals, things of that nature. And so I kept that top of mind, like, I'm not going to be that dad. And so I was very, very intentional about making sure that I left work at a decent time, that I made sure I made it to a game, or I made sure that I did whatever it may be, even sometimes just picking them up from school, because I have two daughters, now 16 and 14-year-old, but making sure I picked them up and we had dinner. Something that simple sometimes. But now, the way I look at it is, it's all together, actually, the way I think about it. And maybe it's because of my role, but I feel like I'm always on, but I also got to be very intentional about being on at home, too. And so it's a whole different way they kind of blend together, and that's the balance, right? So it's not like, oh, I just cut it off. I may just say, oh, I'm going to go home, I'm going to go have dinner, and then maybe at 9 o'clock at night, I finish up a couple emails because I know I need to get something done. So that's the balance, is it's all intertwined, if you will.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely. So what are some wardrobe tips or hacks that you have for future corporate professionals?
Yeah, so I'm a finance guy, so I'm frugal, right? So I've always, and now it's evolved. When I first came into corporate America, 25, 26 years ago, pretty much everyone dressed like this. And it was always suits, it was always ties. And then it got to a place where no ties, or there's no jacket. And then it got to a place, definitely coming out of COVID, where it was more or less, and you see it now, a little bit more relaxed, where people wear jeans and things of that nature. So it really depends on the setting that you're in. If you're supporting a business partners, like at Bank of America, I was supporting a lot of advisors that were out in the marketplace, so they always wore suits. And so I matched that. But then also being very flexible with it. So I may have a full suit, but when I go to another job where I may not be facing someone that's in the front line, I still could wear the same pants, but then I put on a button down, or I can put on a polo. And so just having that flexibility, or I guess, flexibility I'll call it, and you're being able to mix and match different things.
Absolutely.
I'm always very intentional because I don't want to overspend. I don't want to get that suit that I can only wear together, right?
Yeah.
I try to get, the gray, the black, the blue, and then I always know I can mix it up. And the same thing with jackets. I can get multiple jackets to go with multiple slacks. But yeah, you just got to figure out how to balance it out a little bit more and be very intentional.
CFO talking about how to save on suits.
Yeah.
Finance will teach you that. Yeah. So to tie it all up, what advice would you give to young professionals looking to make such an impact in finance?
That's a really good question as well. And this is not going to be a very profound piece of advice. And it's actually very, very simple. It is take advantage of the opportunity.
Absolutely.
That is the biggest thing. I see so many young people, regardless of what you look like, come into the organization, come into multiple organizations, and they treat it like a job instead of a career. And what I mean by that is they're getting the job done, they're getting what they need to get done to go home for the day, but they're not taking advantage of it, thinking about how does this feed into my career? Even though I don't know what I want to do when I grow up, but how can I use this going forward? And the way you do that is by just taking advantage of it and learning as much as you can. Asking questions, just going over beyond, thinking about, well, how does this connect into the bigger picture? I know early on in my career, that's what I spent a lot of time of, well, I'm doing this, but what decisions does this drive? Who's using this information? How can I get in front of that person? How they're thinking about it as well. And I've had some great mentors who've really challenged me in the past that connects all this together as well. I had a treasurer one time. I'm probably 2-3 years out of school, and I'm presenting some information, and I was managing our funding footprint from a just reporting perspective, if you will, and capital. And so I was giving him the updates, the numbers of where everything looked. And he's like, oh, well, what would you do with this information? And I was like, I had a moment because I was not expecting the treasurer of Bank of America to ask me that question. I'm 3 years out of school. But I walked out of that room and was like, that's never going to happen to me again. I'm going to always be prepared to be able to say that and respond. And that's also taking advantage of that situation. And advantage not in a bad way, but it's making sure that I lean in and I'll be prepared to say something or have a response of why this information is important and how it should be used. Even if I'm completely wrong, it's okay, at least I thought about it. And then that person on the other side of the table can have respect for that piece of it, and you never know what door that can open up as well.
Perfect. Wow, that was really good stuff. Yeah, thank you. So we'd like to say thank you again for your time. And again, we are the National Association of Black Accountants at Alabama A&M University. We are currently in Atlanta for our regional career fair and convention. And please think about joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.